Eliza's life was a blur of dull days and sleepless nights. She felt invisible, as if the world moved around her, never noticing her existence. But that all changed one rainy evening. It was a day like any other when she trudged home, tired and numb. She crossed the old stone bridge, staring down at the murky river below. That's when she saw it, a small shop wedged between abandoned buildings. A place she had never noticed before. Curious, she stepped closer to the display window. There, behind the dusty glass, was a red mannequin. It wore a flowing white dress that seemed to shimmer, despite the dirt on the glass. The sight of it made Eliza's heart skip a beat. She couldn't take her eyes off it. The dummy's surface gleamed, its red color deep and intense, almost like fresh blood. It had no eyes, no features. Just smooth red skin that seemed to lean forward slightly, as if it was staring back at her. Eliza felt something strange, a pull, like invisible hands urging her closer. She didn't know why, but she had to have it. Before she could think twice, she was inside the shop. The door creaked open, and a bell chimed softly. The inside was dark and musty. The shop smelled of old wood and something faintly rotten. An old man stood behind the counter, his eyes narrowing as he saw her approach. His gaze flickered nervously to the mannequin. "Yes?" His voice was thin and raspy, like dry leaves rustling in the wind. Eliza swallowed, feeling silly for a second, but the words tumbled out. "How much for the mannequin?" The man's face went pale. He glanced at the dummy again, then back at Eliza. "You mean, the dress?" No, Eliza shook her head, her voice firm. "The mannequin itself. I want it." The man took a step back. His hands trembled as he gripped the edge of the counter. "You can't have it. It's not for sale." "But..." "No." His voice cracked, high-pitched and panicked. He cleared his throat, looking away. "You don't understand. It's not just a mannequin. You can't take it home." Eliza stared at him, a strange anger bubbling up inside her. "It's just a dummy. Why can't I buy it?" He hesitated, his eyes wide and fearful. Then, with a deep breath, he whispered, "Because it's alive." Eliza blinked, then scoffed. "What are you talking about?" The old man leaned forward, his voice dropping to a shaky whisper. "People who buy it don't stay the same. They change. They disappear. Some go mad. It watches you. You'll wake up at night and see it at the foot of your bed. It moves when you're not looking. It speaks when you're alone." Eliza shivered, but she couldn't let go of the feeling that this dummy was meant for her. A dark thrill ran through her. "I don't believe you." "I'll take it." The old man shook his head. "It'll ruin you. It'll..." But she didn't care. She insisted, pushed, argued, until finally, the man sighed, defeated. He wrapped the dummy awkwardly in plastic and handed it over. "It's your funeral," he muttered. At home, Eliza placed the mannequin in the corner of her bedroom. The red skin seemed to glow softly under the dim light. She smiled, strangely pleased. That night, she slept better than she had in years. But when she woke up, something felt wrong. The air was thick and heavy. She glanced at the corner where the mannequin stood. It had moved. It was leaning forward, its head tilted slightly to the side, as if it were listening. Watching. Eliza's heart pounded. Did I leave it like that? She tried to shake it off, convincing herself it was just her imagination. But the next morning, it was closer. And this time, it was facing her bed directly. She laughed nervously. Maybe she bumped it when she was sleepwalking. But deep down, fear gnawed at her. The old man's words echoed in her mind. It's alive. Days passed, and each night, she woke up to find the mannequin in a new position. It was always subtle, a change in the angle of its head, a slight turn of its body. But then, it started getting bolder. One night, she woke to find it standing right beside her bed. Its featureless face was inches away from hers. She screamed, jumping back. But the dummy didn't move. It stood still, silent, and blank. Heart racing, Eliza grabbed it and shoved it back into the corner. "Stay there," she shouted, her voice shaking. But the next night, she heard it. A soft whisper. "Eliza." She froze, eyes wide open in the dark. The voice was faint, but unmistakable. It came from the corner. "Eliza, come closer." Trembling, she turned on the light. The mannequin hadn't moved, but she could feel it. Its presence was stronger, suffocating her with invisible dread. She knew she had to get rid of it. But when she tried to pick it up, its smooth red arms wrapped around her. She screamed, struggling, but the dummy held tight, pulling her closer until she was face to face with its blank, crimson head. "Eliza," it whispered again. "You're mine now." And then, everything went dark. The next morning, the shopkeeper found his door open. Inside, there was no sign of Eliza. But the red mannequin was back in the window, dressed in its pristine white gown. Only this time, it had a new addition. A faint outline of a woman's face, her features twisted in silent horror, was etched into the smooth, red surface. The shopkeeper sighed and closed the door. The bell chimed softly. He knew it was just a matter of time before someone else noticed it. Someone who couldn't resist the call of the red dummy,